So, like I was saying, the stock market crash of 1929 was not just a result of unregulated market. Oh, what's up, guys? Didn't see you there. We were just having a little friendly debate, and somebody fell asleep in the middle of it. But this is Teddy, and he wanted to introduce himself, but then he got a little tired. But anyways, this is him, and I'll probably send you guys more pictures, but you can take it for now. There you go. What's up? It's been a little while. First of all, I want to say thank you because I got like several emails from some of you guys and praying for us and sending good thoughts. And so that really, really, really means a lot. Everything's going really well over here. We're doing really well, recovering a little bit, not getting a whole lot of sleep, but that comes with the territory. And so right now, the game plan for me is probably back in the classroom sometime next week. And yeah, I'm having a lot of fun here at home, but I do miss you guys. And so I can't wait to kind of get back in the classroom, get back into the learning. So the game plan for today is I did want to do like half the lecture notes with you. And then we'll probably do another video or something like that, and we can finish them up on block day. So if you have lecture notes, go ahead and get those out. And if you're using like a highlighter or something, you can go ahead and get all that stuff ready to go. And let's get into it. Also, this is bringing back like hardcore Zoom, coronavirus, distance learning memories. I don't know if those are good. That's a good thing, but let's see if we can. Perfect. All right. So, like I said, we'll do about half, and then we'll save the rest of the half for, or the second half for block day. The title today is actually a big concept, and that's called the Enlightenment. Today, the main goal is to just talk about what this Enlightenment period was, and how it's going to make a major impact on the entire world, really. And we title it the Age of Reason, and that's because when you think of the Enlightenment, it's all about reasoning. It's all about using logic and science and rationality to be able to answer questions that people prior to the Enlightenment didn't really bother to question at all. And so that's the Enlightenment. And so what we're gonna before we talk about what the Enlightenment is, we have to go back a little bit prior in history and learn about something that came beforehand, before the Enlightenment, and that's called the scientific revolution. Okay. And so now we're in the mid 1600s. And what's starting to happen is you have your scientists of the day that are really going to start to question, beliefs and ideas that people really didn't bother questioning beforehand. Ideas that a lot of times are promoted and reinforced by the church, by the Catholic Church. And so this is highly controversial. The idea of questioning institutions as powerful as the church, which is something that you didn't really do back then. But now you're getting this handful of scientists that are going to start to do that. And so it is controversial. And so what tends to happen, or what's going to happen, is the scientific method is really going to start to come about during this again, mid 1500s or so. And some of you guys in your science classes, you've talked about this a little bit, right? Scientific method, being able to have a hypothesis, being able to, come to, some sort of conclusion. And so what's going to happen is these are your big names of the day, your Copernicus, Galileo, Newton, Sir Isaac Newton. Some of these guys we're going to talk about right now. And they're questioning things. They're questioning concepts that, again, had prior to this, you didn't really bother questioning. What's an example? One of the things like, why does the sun come up every day? Prior to the scientific revolution, the answer to that was just, well, because God said so. That's pretty much where it stopped. And you didn't really go further than that because nobody really wanted to question what the church was saying. And so these are the scientists that are going to say, okay, well, yeah, there's that, but also maybe there's a little more reasoning to that. There's a little more science to it. Maybe there's something that we could do to figure out, more in depth how we can answer these questions. And so, like I said, it starts in the scientific realm, But sooner or later, this whole concept of questioning things is going to start to seep its way into or extend itself into other areas of life. Including, and this, the big thing, including government and religion. People are going to start to question whether or not the kind of government that they're living under, whether it's an absolute monarchy or dictatorship or something. They're going to start to question whether or not that's the most efficient type of government, or if there's something that's better. And so when you think of the Enlightenment, the big one, you're going to want to maybe make a note of this. The big word that comes to mind is questioning. The Enlightenment was all about questioning, challenging authority, and like I said, they're going to start to do that in all areas of life, including areas of government and religion. And so that's why you have on the bottom there, you have King George III, an absolute monarch in England, and people are going to start to question whether or not his power and his absolutism is what's best for the people. And so that leads to the first guy there, and this is Copernicus, and I believe he dies in 1634. And so Copernicus, he gets really remembered for one major thing. This guy pretty much spent his whole life dedicated to one major theory, and that theory was that the sun, not the earth, was at the center of the universe. And back then, we didn't know back then in the 1600s that there were like multiple galaxies and billions of galaxies and solar systems. We thought that pretty much our solar system was pretty much the entire universe. Obviously, we know today that that's not true. But his theory was that that it's the sun that's at the center of our little solar system, not the earth. Prior to his theory, the pretty much accepted system, or the accepted belief, was that the earth was at the center of everything, and that everything kind of rotated around us. And so he basically spends his whole life utilizing astronomy and mathematics and observations, and he kind of comes to the conclusion that no, that the sun is actually much bigger than we are, and we're the ones that are rotating around the sun, not vice versa. And so what happens is, you get this guy, and this guy's name is Galileo Galilei, and he actually comes on the scene about 100 years later, in 1632. Copernicus had already been dead for over 100 years. But he's the guy that really starts to reinforce some of those observations and conclusions that Copernicus had made. And he starts to reinforce those ideas, saying, yeah, Copernicus was right. The earth is what is rotating around the sun, not vice versa. And he also was one of the first to really come up with the idea that the earth, when it rotates, that we don't rotate like this. We don't rotate, kind of on a straight, a side up. In fact, let me see here. If you guys have ever seen a globe, right? Most globes, the earth is not straight like this, right? Most globes rotate what we call on an axis. And that's because this is basically how the earth is positioned. It rotates on its axis, and that's why you have, some parts of the world are very cold, some of them are super hot. This is why you have seasons, is because we rotate on our axis. And so basically, these ideas, very controversial. Very, very controversial, challenging what the church is saying. In fact, it is the Catholic Church that pretty much forces Galileo to deny these theories, to basically stop talking about these theories, and they put him on house arrest pretty much until he dies. And it wasn't until like over 300 years later, in 1992, when the Pope said, "Well, turns out he was right. It turns out we do rotate on our axis. It turns out that we do rotate around the sun, not the sun rotating around us." And he pretty much gets his name cleared. A little bit too little too late, but that's all right. And so, again, challenging, questioning. Now we're into the mid 1700s. Okay. Now we're into a century where we're going to start to see this concept, these Enlightenment concepts of questioning and challenging authority. Now we're going to start to see how this movement is going to influence entire revolutions. And so on the bottom picture there, you have, our guy George Washington crossing the Delaware River. And as some of you guys have start to make the connection. The American Revolution, when we decided that we were going to start to fight for our independence, when we decided that we no longer wanted to live under this absolute monarchy, English monarchy, we're going to utilize these Enlightenment ideas of challenging and questioning authority to be able to do that. And then the picture on the top is our next unit, right? We're going to also learn in this class how the French Revolution is also very much spearheaded by Enlightenment ideas. These are French people that are really going to challenge authority and challenge their government to the utmost, and basically set the country of France a new chapter in their history. And so, like I said, there's that word again. I've said it about 15 times already. When you think about the Enlightenment, you think about questioning, okay? Questioning all that stuff during the scientific revolution, in the 15 and 1600s. Now we're into the 1700s, and now we're going to start to have these philosophers come about and start to question government, right? Bigger idea stuff. And little side note here, but I want to make a note of this test question. But the Enlightenment was an intellectual movement. Okay. Every year on the test, when you guys are doing your study guides and you're getting ready for the test, every single year when we take the test, some of you guys end up getting mixed up the Renaissance with the Enlightenment. So I'm trying to help you out with here. You might want to make a note. Okay. Remember the Renaissance that we already learned about last week. The Renaissance was a cultural movement, right? The Renaissance was all about like paintings and art and literature and things like that. Remember the Mona Lisa? So the Renaissance was more of a cultural movement. The Enlightenment is an intellectual movement. Okay, where philosophers are going to start to challenge entire governments. And so, who are these philosophers? Here's some of their names. You got guys coming out of England like John Locke. You got the Baron de Montesquieu. You got Jean-Jacques Rousseau. You have Voltaire. These are some of the big Enlightenment names. I will say this, okay? These guys are a pretty big part of our first test. You are going to have to know who they are. You are going to have to know what their main ideas were, their main concepts that they wanted to voice. And so on block day, I'm going to give you a little assignment to try and help you out with that. I'm trying to help you out with with learning that. But you probably are going to have to look some of these guys up on your own and really, again, make sure that you understand what they get remembered for. Okay. But like on block day, I'll give you a little assignment to help you out with that. All right. So we'll start with the first guy, Voltaire. And this is him. He's French. Voltaire is a French philosopher. He is a writer. He's published a lot of books, and most of his books, most of his published works are centered on one thing. And Voltaire, he absolutely just could not stand the elite, the wealthy, the people that were on top of society. A lot of his books that he published were really all about criticizing the clergy. The clergy is just members of the church. And so you want to make a note of that. So he really spent a lot of time criticizing the clergy, the members of the church, criticizing the aristocrats or the elite, the wealthy, and also criticizing his own government. He's from France. And so he is living under an absolute monarchy. The king in France at this point in time has absolute power over the people, and Voltaire is one of those philosophers that's really starting to voice his discredit and starting to criticize how his government functions, right? And so a lot of his books are centered on fighting for basic freedoms. Things like freedom of religion, which really was not allowed in France at this time, and even freedom of speech. The ability to voice your opinions, the ability to be able to criticize your leadership, and not be jailed or even killed for things like that. And he himself is jailed, gets exiled several times from his country for a lot of the ideas he's promoting, right? And so I put this picture at the bottom to kind of connect these two. If you don't know what's going on the bottom here, this is the pictures taken in 1917. That is outside the White House in the United States. And these are women. I'll show you a better picture. These are American women outside the White House in 1917. And they are basically utilizing their freedom of speech in our country trying to fight for the basic right to vote. If you don't know, in 1917, the right to cast a ballot as a woman was not something that was guaranteed in the Constitution. It wasn't something that women could do. And so these are women that are pretty much utilizing that right and that freedom to be able to speak out against what they believe is wrong, and they did, and so that's what women's suffrage is. And so I wanted to show this because just to connect the idea that freedom of speech, especially in our country, that's something that we really value as Americans, right? To be able to have our freedom of speech. That's something that we didn't create. We didn't create that concept. In fact, people from other parts of the world were advocating for these rights several hundred years before this picture was even taken. And so, but again, that's a freedom of speech is something that we have a lot of value as Americans as. And so, what I want to do real quick, going back to this picture, is I want to talk a little bit about the relationship between humans and their government. Some people would argue that what these women are fighting for, is natural, that equality and justice is something that just comes naturally to humans. So I want to get your guys' take on this. And so what I want you to do is flip the paper over to the summary, and we're going to do a little quick write on the summary. You don't have to take up the whole summary, but I wanted to ask you just a basic question here. It says the relationship between people and government. What I want to ask you is this: what do you believe we as humans are naturally? Okay. There's some people in the world that believe that we as human beings are naturally, selfish, greedy, violent. There's some people in the world that think the opposite, that think that we as humans are naturally, good, compassionate, caring. And so I want to get your opinion on this. I want you to think about, again, humans in their natural state. Think of the second that a child comes into the world. We just had our son last week, right? And in their natural state, are humans greedy, selfish, only capable of thinking about themselves, and maybe even naturally violent? Or do you think that we're good and caring and selfless? What do you believe that we are as humans are? So what I want you to do, and Miss Peterson, you can help me out. You're going to get about 3 minutes to kind of come up or come down with some sort of response, and talk about why you think that is. Maybe an example comes to mind in your head. And so as you're thinking right now, go ahead and spend about 3 minutes, and you can write down your response. After you're done writing, then Ms. Peterson is going to tell you to go ahead and share with your partner. We're not going to share full class because I'm not there, but you can go ahead and share with your partners what you wrote down, and then after that, we can continue. So Ms. Peterson, you can go ahead and pause the video right now, and then in 3 minutes, you can come back, okay? Okay, good. So hopefully you had a chance to share a little bit. And for me myself, for when I still struggle with this question a little bit, because I'm not sure if there's an answer. Hopefully in your conversations you had a little bit of both. Hopefully in your conversations you had some people that felt one way and some people that felt a complete different way. I still struggle with this question because I'm not quite sure. So I want to talk a little bit about both sides. If you felt like we as humans are naturally maybe greedy and violent and selfish, maybe because of pictures like this. Sometimes when you turn on, the news, you see images like this all the time, right? Not just here in our country, but all over the world. You see images and examples of humans, being violent and destructive, right? Shoot, even here in our own city, all you have to do is turn on the 5 o'clock news, and you'll see plenty of that, right? And here in a couple months, when we get to the November, we get to Thanksgiving time, right? I always find this part kind of ironic that every Thanksgiving, we as a country get together, talk about all the things that we're thankful for and whatnot. And then just a couple hours later, we go out and literally kill each other over a flat screen TV that's 20% off. You hear stories like that every single Black Friday. People die out there in the Targets and the Walmarts over things. And I think about, is this natural? Is this something that just comes naturally for us as humans? Are we naturally selfish like this? Is this a trait that's learned or taught? I don't know. I'm not quite sure. I don't really have an answer for you. Speaking of another example, our next unit is the French Revolution. When we get there, we're going to find out. We're going to learn how this revolution really it brings the worst out of human beings. You're going to see these French citizens, these French people, with a lot of anger and hatred built up in them, and that's going to cause them to do really graphic, really gory, really violent things because of that. And it's such a destructive, chaotic time for the country of France. Is this something that's natural? Is this something that we as humans naturally do? Next semester, when we get to obviously the rise of the Nazi Party and Adolf Hitler, we're going to kind of go into the mind of one of the most evil men in human history. Were these evil agendas that he constructed in his mind, was that something that was natural? Was that something that was taught? I'm not sure. So that's the one side. On the flip side to that, if you kind of feel more like, again, we have good traits and compassion and whatnot, I think of pictures like this, right? And if you don't know, this picture is taken on the morning of September 11th, 2001. This is in the North Tower of the World Trade Centers. This firefighter right here has a name. His name's Mike Cahill. And I'm always fascinated by this picture because, what do you see in this picture? It's a staircase. You can only imagine how chaotic these staircases were, right? As these planes were going into these buildings, you can only imagine the screaming and the chaos of everyone trying to, race out of these buildings, people probably stumbling over each other and pushing. And, just imagine how chaotic it was. And so while you have on the right side, everyone's trying to get out of these buildings, you see here a man, trying to go up, trying to get up. And on that morning, you saw a lot of selflessness. You saw a lot of people willing to, to sacrifice their lives in order to save other people. Is this natural? Is this something that we as humans just naturally do? I'm not sure, right? You see examples like this all the time. It kind of maybe restores your faith in humanity a little bit, right? Sometimes you see strangers risking their lives, giving their lives for people that they've never met, Is that something that we as humans does it come natural for us? I'm not sure. Sometimes, we don't even risk our lives to save other humans. Sometimes you see us risking our lives to save animals, right? And here's a pretty interesting story here. I don't know if you know about this guy, but talk about selflessness. Talk about compassion. This guy's name's Kyle Carpenter, and I believe this is he's a U.S. Marine, and I believe this was in 2010, and he was serving in Iraq, and basically a hand grenade gets thrown and falls right next to him and like three other fellow soldiers. And in a split second decision, this guy decides that he's going to jump on that grenade and pretty much absorb the entire blow of it so that he can save his fellow soldiers, right? Again, split second decision. Is that just something that this man had naturally in him? Was that something that was learned or taught? I'm not sure. And if you don't realize or notice what he has around his neck right there on the picture on the right, that is what that blue thing, that's what's called the Congressional Medal of Honor. If you're not familiar with that, the Congressional Medal of Honor is the highest award that you can receive as a member of the military. And we don't just give those out. A lot of times you have to do something so heroic. You have to do something so selfless that a lot of times it costs you your own life. Kyle Carpenter is one of the few men there is, and I believe that's 2011, where he's getting pinned by then President Barack Obama. And a lot of times to receive this medal, you have to end up sacrificing your life. He did survive. How? I have absolutely no idea. He had, I think, over 35 surgeries. He had the removal of his eye and all these different, things, but he survived. He's thriving today. He is the author of several books. You'll see him doing little interviews and things like that. Just an example of just a heroic person. Again, natural. I'm not sure, but it is a pretty cool story. And so, with that being said, we're going to stop right there because what's going to happen when we finish these is we're going to talk about two philosophers that you are going to have to know for the test that have very different viewpoints on who we as humans are. Again, naturally greedy, selfish, violent, compassionate, caring, selfless. We're going to see two different contrasting views, and those views are going to be what helps shape their opinions on systems of government. All right. So, with that being said, we're going to stop there. And real quick before go, make sure. Okay. First of all, I've been hearing really good things about what's going on in there, so please keep it up. Just make sure that you're doing the right things, making good decisions. Make sure you're taking care of the classroom. Okay. Remember, that's a big deal for me. So make sure that, you're picking up your trash, even if it's not yours, just take care of the classroom. Make sure that the desks are clean and all that. That really does matter to me. I will be back in the classroom on Wednesday night because we got back to school night. So if you do go to that with your parents, okay, that would be cool. Can't wait to see you. Or I can't wait to meet some of you guys' parents too. But other than that, okay, like I said, I miss you guys. I can't wait to get back in there with you. And that'll be sometime next week. So with that being said, you're going to work on your chapter preview right now. Those are with the orange books. They're in the back corner of the room. And so when Miss Peterson tells you to go, you can go grab one. You can share with the person that you're sitting next to, but you should not be moving around to other parts of the room. Okay. And so work on that a little bit. If you don't finish, it's okay. You will have a little bit of time in the next couple periods to finish it up. Okay. So anyways, have a great day. I'll see you guys later.